Welcome to Foundations of Heutagogy. Today's topic of discussion is benefits and relevance of heutagogy. Heutagogy is self-determined learning, right? For the last few discussions, we did establish that heutagogy is a self-determined learning process where the learner decides his or her own learning path. So, in a self-determined learning, it is very important that the learner acquire both competencies and capabilities. Now, what sort of competencies and capabilities does a learner need to acquire? So, these capacities, these capabilities are the benefits of heutagogy. Because through heutagogy, these capacities and capabilities are nurtured. What are these? Self-efficacy. That is, in knowing how to learn and continuously reflect on the learning process. This reflection takes a center stage in heutagogical approaches. Then comes communication and teamwork skills. As rooted in, social pedagogy, or we can say social approach. Heutagogy is a social constructivistic approach. So, teamwork, communication skills are the pivots. Creativity, particularly in applying competencies to new situations, maybe in some unfamiliar situations, and by being able to adapt. So, it is giving us a flexibility in approach. Positive values is one of the benefits of applying heutagogy. So, having said the capabilities, the capacities, potentialities that are prerequisite to heutagogical approach, and in a way through heutagogy these are nurtured and it becomes the beneficial part of heutagogy. So heutagogy's holistic approach takes into account the learner's prior learning experience and the way in which these influence how she or he learns by considering these past experiences and the learner's current experience and reflecting upon these. So, the past experiences are very important because through past experiences, a learner knows his or her own capacities, potentialities, and also how they influence. And these past experiences are actually very important in creating the new experience. A reflection of the past always helps in creating a better present and more best future. And the learner moves into a growth process that has the potential to lead to transformative learning. So, this heutagogy and its relevance lies for the lifelong learner, right? And this lifelong learning is largely possible under open and distance learning system. And in open and distance learning system, this relevance of heutagogy lies in so many things which are all directed towards the learners. Because here the relevance of heutagogy is explained through learner-defined learning contracts, flexible curriculum, flexible and negotiated assessment. And in between flexible curriculum and negotiated assessment, we have learner-directed questions. Since heutagogy is based on the principle of self-determined learning for adult learners and it is an extension of andragogy, here is more focus on flexibility, association, construction, previous experiences, interaction, interdependence of the resources. So, the learner's defined learning contracts are established. Also, the curriculum, since the learner is the determiner, the flexible curriculum is one of the important aspects which gives relevance to the open and distance learning system. Learners quenching to learner-directed questions. Because unless and until we satisfy this learners or learner-directed questions, we cannot set the goal for their learning path. We cannot set the goal for their learning determination. And then comes the flexible and negotiated assessment. What is this? In Heutagogy, the learner is involved in designing his or her assessment. Negotiated and learner-defined assessment has been shown to improve the motivation of learners. Since capacity, capability, self-efficacy is the fundamentals of heutagogical approach, so motivation is very important. As in one of the discussion, we had come across this point that self-motivation is very important. If a learner is not motivated, he or she cannot determine his or her own learning path, cannot utilize the resources that are being across or surrounds him or her, and their involvement in the learning process as well as make learners less threatened by instructor control of their learning process. Since the entire thing is being determined, being carried out with the support of, definitely support of the facilitators, if it is institution or workplace whatsoever. But this threatening has a very, very, very less imposition on the learner. And they are more involved in learning because they have chosen their assessment. Another aspect, which is very relevant, and it is one of the key component of heutagogy, collaborative learning, as it is a critical component of the heutagogical classroom. When learning collaboratively, learners work together in a collaborative space to create shared meaning and to reflect and think about how they learned and how to apply it in practice. So metacognition develops with collaborative learning. And we know that collaborative learning is grounded in the principle of social constructivistic theory of teaching learning. Now, when we talk about relevance in open and distance learning, relevance to distance education, heutagogy is in a unique position for creating learning environments for supporting distance education, as well as for contributing to further research into heutagogy. And distance education is actually helping in contributing, in developing ways and means to promote heutagogy, to make better, to make the most of heutagogy. Because this approach will help its learners who have a diverse background, and a huge learner base in an open education system can only be catered through heutagogical approach. It will be catered through, in a more meaningful way, because we are actually preparing a workforce suitable for a global knowledge economy. So specific characteristics of distance education that align themselves with heutagogy includes, and these aligned components are the relevance of heutagogy in the contemporary open and distance education. With the pandemic and many unforeseen situations, this ICT based education, social media technology have given us a big support. It is undeniably true. And in the coming time, when we are talking about a GER of 50% as envisioned in National Education Policy 2020, where open and distance education can only contribute to this figure, GER of 50%. And heutagogy can play a pivotal role here if we give the education through heutagogical approach. And we may include the technology, the profile of distance education learner, the learner autonomy. Just a few seconds back, I was talking about the heterogeneous base of learners, a huge base of learners, the diverse learners from diverse backgrounds, because we have housewives, two working professionals who are enrolling in different courses, different programs for their workplace. And also we do have fresh learners. When I talk about we, I mean the open and distance education. So this technology profile and the learner autonomy takes a very center stage, and distance education can align with heutagogy with these components. Keeping in mind these components, and a structured design can be made in order to give a better learning, outcome-based education to the millennials. Because these millennial learners, they should be equipped with the 21st century learning skills. And this 21st century learning skills talks about things which cannot be self-imposed, which cannot be imposed from outside, but we have to create an environment where the learners, the lifelong learners, the learners who are engaged in different situations, in different places, in different workplace, can achieve the education for which they have enrolled. Because it is defined as the study of self-determined learning, where Heutagogy is a learner-centered educational theory founded on the key principles of learner agency, self-efficacy, capability, and metacognition and reflection. As over a couple of discussions, we were harping on these components: thinking, overthinking, knowing how to learn, reflecting the past experience to the current experience, building a self-efficacy, having the capacity, potentiality to learn, to choose from the different options that are being given, to interact, to be active in a learning process. So all these are grounded in the social constructivistic theory of teaching learning, and Heutagogy is the center stage in distance education. So the relevance lies much more through distance education. We can give Heutagogical approach big success, or in another way we can say that Heutagogy can give a huge success to a fruitful outcome through distance education. So to sum up our discussion, we can conclude that the theory and practice of self-determined learning that focuses on the importance of knowing how to learn as a key skill for the 21st century. It builds on the self-directed principles of andragogy, in which students develop their own learning skills. However, in Heutagogy, learning moves from self-direction to self-determination. The role of the teacher is to facilitate learning, and students take responsibility for creating their own learning pathway by choosing what they want to learn, setting learning goals, and choosing the most appropriate method of learning to them. In doing so, the students develop the capability to become autonomous and lifelong learners. The key concepts in Heutagogy include the double loop learning and self-reflection. This we have already dealt in while discussing the basic concepts of Heutagogy. And Heutagogy can be applied to emerging technologies, as we have discussed in the social media and Heutagogy, such as learning via social media, and provides a framework for learning in the digital age.